Are you looking to level up your author business?
Are you pounding your head against a wall, wondering what your next step should be? Then join me, Daniel Wilcox.
And me, Sacha Black, as we haul ass each week in a bid to level up.
Level up!
Come along for the ride as we delve deep into the business of writing,
Craft,
entrepreneurship,
and every level of the author journey. This is the Next Level Author Podcast.
Hello, Achievers. This is episode 23 of the Next Level Author Podcast, a podcast where we hold each other to account and track our step-by-step progress as we level up our author business. My name's Sacha Black, and here with me every week is...
Daniel Wilcox.
Yeah. And it actually is. Yeah. And you know what? Actually back.
I'm back. I'm here.
Yay.
All the naysayers thought I was never going to come back. It was being swept under the rug. It was just some conspiracy that was just covering up the fact I was dead. But I'm back.
Well,
I'm here.
And frankly, we did have two excellent hosts who were, let's be realistic, possibly better than you. No, I'm joking.
I mean, there's a good chance.
No,
Jay Thorne and Faye Trask, who did fantastic jobs, and I watched from the sidelines. And thank you both for filling in, particularly at short notice, considering everything that went on.
Yeah.
I think they did a fantastic job at filling in, and it's nice sometimes just to hear from other voices. I'm hoping that at some point you bugger off so I can have some guest ons, but we'll see.
You mean I have to admit to being really fucking exhausted and actually, leave and not.
Yeah. Well, shall I take a second just to acknowledge a little bit of what happened, just because?
Yes, okay, yes.
Just to kind of fully fill in. But essentially, what happened was, as people know who listen to this, part of one of my tasks was to send off my MacBook for repair, because the keys keep sticking. It's been a problem for months, and I was like, okay, I'll get that done. And around the time that I sent it off, a good friend of mine fixed my PC, so I had a backup computer. And then essentially, the repair due to COVID 10x'd how long it would take to do. And actually, I've only just got an update today saying that they're repairing it. And this was 2.5 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I thought I'd backed everything up. And the PC then decided to go kaput and just be really unreliable. I then borrowed a laptop that also didn't work. I then realized I hadn't backed up a really key file that I needed in order to do Great Writers Share episode 50, which for people who listened to it was the big episode where I had 11 very, very stellar guests, including yourself on. And I announced that I was having 3 new co-hosts coming on the show and joining me, which was Faye Trask, Holly Line, and John Crinnan. And the key part that was missing was their audio that we recorded a few months back. So it was basically a combination of literally everything going wrong in the span of 2 days, plus overwork, plus an upcoming holiday, plus all these big things going on, plus a deadline, plus this. And I just fell into a well of just overwhelm, I guess. And you were very, very gracious to basically suggest bringing other people on and making it all just a bit easier. And for that, I'm massively grateful. I've had a few days off where I've gone to a caravan for 5 days with my family, had a bit of a rest, and I'm back and ready to rock and roll. So thank you.
Look like you've had a rest. You are sparkly, your skin looks smoother and brighter, and you look happier and rested.
I didn't feel it until literally just now, but
is that because you looked at me and was like, oh,
that's what I was like.
Yeah.
But no, in the
ouch.
People know that I absolutely love doing this show, and it's literally a highlight of my week. And for probably about, I don't know, the last 6 weeks before that break, it was I enjoyed doing the show, but it was definitely coming from a place of last resort, if that makes sense. It was all of my final energy of the day at the end of the week, burning it up. And it's multiple stuff. It's a pandemic, it's deadlines, it's just overwork as we do as creatives. And rest is helpful. So on a serious note, whenever you're ready to take your rest, let us know.
It might be one of those times where you go, it's your time to go now.
I mean, you pretty much just grabbed my face metaphorically and just shoved me back and went, no.
I was like, you're not doing it this week or next week, so go find me some stand-ins. And
go on. I was gonna say on the plus side, I decided to go fuck it and just buy a brand new laptop. So I'm back online and everything's perfect and better than before, which is nice.
Yay. There is nothing better than a new gadget. I fucking love a new gadget.
Yes. And you got one last week, your little Apple Pencil, which you bragged about.
Yeah. Was it? I don't know. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. Has it really only been a week?
It was last week.
Oh my God. This
I feel
thing
like
is
I've had it for 7 years.
Yeah.
It's always been a part of me, like it was always there.
You're such a dick. That is so true. I literally was about to say that. I hate you a little bit right now. Oh, how do you know me this well already? Yeah, like well, you saw the shock in my face.
Yeah.
Let's just move on. Let's just fucking move on. I'm just rolling past. Oh my God, chaos has descended already.
This is where the episodes get longer again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is your first one back. It was always going to be slightly longer. So, how are you? That's the first thing we always check in. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. As I kind of briefly alluded to, a lot of big things happened over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Great Writer Share has expanded, which is very exciting. It's past 10,000 downloads, which for me is freaking awesome, considering that I went on a bit of a hiatus in December and was at one point I was quite worried about the download numbers growing back up again because, you know, when you put a show on hold, it dips very, very dramatically. But people are listening. It's fantastic. Just about keeping up. Well, just about got to the point where I've caught up with my production schedule. And yeah, like I'm cracking into When Winter Comes number 5. I'm in talks at the minute with a cover designer about getting a cover for the box set when it's all ready to go. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I'm kind of working on, but you know, that's, I mean, I'm working on loads, but that's where I'm at the minute. So yeah, in a pretty good headspace, and I'm back. So how about yourself? Yeah.
We always promise to be completely honest on this podcast, so I find it very difficult to. I don't want to put negativity out. So what I will say is that I've had an incredibly hard week, and I'm kind of done with everything. Mm-hmm. Do you ever have those days where you're like, and I say this from a place of privilege, and I'm extremely aware of the fact that I'm very privileged, and therefore, you know, lots of the things that have pushed me to the point of done are like first world issues. But nonetheless, I've reached the end of my tether. So today has been the culmination of that. And so, yeah, I have some personal blockers. My son is still not in a school, and that's a problem. That is now a problem. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's difficult. And I'm tired, and I'm sleeping more because I'm tired, which is good, but I'm not getting any less tired, which is bad. And I probably need a break. And you know, we got to the point like over the summer, obviously we've had COVID, and you know, therefore a full-time child, as well as trying to run a full-time business. And on top of that, we moved house, and then we renovated said house, and there has been no stop, no break, no holiday, and any time off that we have had has been doing up the house or doing this or looking after the child. So I have never more acutely felt the need to step away from everything. And thankfully, I have, I think, 3 or 4 days at the end of this month where we're going to Center Parcs. So I will do my utmost to ensure that I don't have to turn on a piece of technology that weekend. Whether or not I can successfully do that, I don't know. Usually, you know what it's like in our business. There's always 1 or 2 things that have to be done. But for the most part, I would like to get to the point where I don't have to do anything. But really, I don't know. I'm tired and I'm fed up, if I'm honest. Yeah. And that's I can't lie about it.
Yeah. You also don't need to justify the fact that you've reached the end of your tether.
Why not? I mean, I feel like I do.
Not really. No. I mean, you get to feel how you feel, and like you just said, you've been through a buttload, and we spoke on the phone earlier about stuff, and like I think you're more than justified to be in the position where you are, and there will be an end point where you can take that time, relax, and catch up. But like, Jesus Christ, a pandemic for the last 6 months, as well as looking after a child from home and everything else that's been going on. Like, it's hard, it's taxing. And I think anyone who's in a position where, we've got friends who are parents as well as working full-time as creatives, and trying to juggle all that it's fucking superhero work. So to get to a point where you're tired, it's to be expected. I'm surprised you got this far, to be fair, before getting to, because I've seen you've ebbed and flowed as the months have gone by, but this is definitely the culmination of.
I definitely I definitely, hit that line of,
So if anyone wants to fill in for Sacha's shoes next week on this show, then do just email us.
No, not yet. It's not that kind of...
She's not as weak as me.
No, it's not. You are not weak, can I just point out. Anyway, right, let's move on. So before we go into the thing that we've enjoyed this week, I wanted to draw attention to a couple of things. So the first one is Jeff and Will from the Big Gay Author podcast. So we both separately had like a brain fart then. We both separately went on their podcast.
I went first.
Yeah. Oh, at least you're not competitive. So yes, Daniel went first. Cheers, guys. No, I'm really joking. Yeah, Daniel went first, and but you know what they say: first the worst, second the best. So just anyway, let's move on. And we then did like a second session, and they did something awesome, and they pieced it together. And so they have your questions and my questions, and it. And we're all on one podcast, and I have listened to all of yours, and I turned off a couple of minutes into mine because I was like, I can't listen to me anymore.
I listened to all of yours as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate listening to myself, and I really hate it when I have to listen to the audiobooks. But anyway, so yes, go and listen to that. We're going to link to it in the show notes. And the other thing. My heart, the writers well. I am not going to lie, I definitely welled up listening to it. So for people that aren't aware, one of, I don't know, I'm talking for both of us, but one of our favourite podcasts is The Writers Well. Yeah. Hosted by Jay Thorne and Rachel Herron. And I was frankly devastated when they spontaneously launched their episode last week. I think it was last week, all the days have blurred, and they announced that they were going on hiatus, like sort of mostly permanent, but possible other episodes in the future, but more or less that's it. It's the end of the Writers Well. And oh my god, it was the most emotional show. And I just want to, I don't know, I guess tip my hat and say, well fucking done for saying enough is enough when enough is enough for them, because I'm terrible at that. B, thank you for more than 2 years, nearly 200 episodes of what has been a weekly piece of joy for me. I literally get up in the morning on a Wednesday and I'm like, yes, it's Writers Well Day. So thank you for giving me that slice of joy. And please come back. But also good luck for everything that you guys are going off to do. And I wish you guys both the best of luck. But I just wanted to, I
think there's something so refreshing about what was brought to I guess the author community with that podcast, because there was such a transparency. I mean, I went back after listening to that episode and then listened to episode 1 again when it was the Petals of the Metal, and you can hear that it was the beginning of this journey. Jay had just decided to go full-time, Rachel was full-time, and there was this backwards and forwards, and it almost felt like you were watching Jay's journey as Rachel not so much held his hand but guided him into that full-time work. And obviously both authors have come a long way over those years, so you can really watch people change. And I think, probably again speaking for both of us, that part of that format is obviously a little bit of what inspired this show. And even before we launched the show, I spoke to Jay and just went, is it just so this is what we're thinking of, and he was more than gracious just to say, yeah, absolutely, like go ahead and do it. And there's something about authenticity that I think is missing from the author community, because you hear a lot of podcasts of people being interviewed, whether that's blog or podcast or whatever, and there seems to be a highlight of the successes and the good times and As you can see from their podcast, there were times where obviously there are emotional parts of their lives where either one of them was struggling over something, and just being together, being honest. And I think that's something that we strive to do with this, is just to be authentic, really translate what the author experience is, because other than podcasts like this, where are you gonna hear the actual inside thoughts of an author who is full-time, particularly when you're just starting out or whatever? And yeah, fantastic. 190 episodes is nothing to be ashamed of. And like you say, knowing when to get to a point that you're done, because they could have continued, they could have done the extra 10 episodes, they could have whatever, but I think they're both people who are smart enough to know where their time is best invested. And yeah, wish them all the best of luck in the world on whatever they go on to next.
Yeah, I might have to
come back.
I know. I might have to go and binge listen from the beginning again, because so many of their episodes are timeless. Like, obviously they're dated because, you know, they talk about things in their lives that are, or things that in you know, the world that date the shows, but so much of the content is timeless. So yeah, I might actually go back and binge listen to the whole 190 all over again, because I cannot cope without a piece of them every week. So yes, okay, fine, right, what have you enjoyed this week?
Oh man, again, as always, I'm unprepared for this question.
I can go first.
Go for it.
Okay, so very on theme, but there is a podcast called How to Fail, and it's hosted by Elizabeth Day, and I fucking love it. Oh my God. So she takes what should be a negative concept, and she looks at how our failures help us to succeed, and it's brilliant. And I'm just trying to go in here because I want to see if the first episode, how do I previously played. Okay, cool. So that was it. The very first episode I listened to was with Glennon Doyle, who wrote Untamed, which is a book that some of my writing gal pals have told me I must read, and I think they even sent me the copy actually. So yeah, that's on my shelf of like must read immediately. And it was amazing. And oh no, the first episode I listened to was with what's her bloody name? The woman who wrote Killing Eve. She's got like a three named.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
Anyway, we'll talk about it when I remember her name. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Yes. That is her name. And she had this episode, that's the very first episode because they're friends. And she talks about like female rage, and there was so much and she talks about Killing Eve and Villanelle, who is the like psychopath in it. And it's such a fascinating, in-depth look at rage and women and power, and yeah, it just inspired and gave me a lot of thoughts, and I have started listening to a whole bunch of the other episodes, and it is fucking brilliant. So yeah, and she's got a lot of really famous authors on there as well. Sebastian Faulks, Jessie Burton, I think Elizabeth Gilbert has been on there as well. I feel like she's been on there anyway. Yeah, so I recommend.
I'm gonna cheat and do two, only because both have sprung to mind at once. The number one is that I mentioned a couple of months ago that I've been doing the Couch to 10K app and sort of following along with that. This week I have done 3 9K runs, which is for me it's 9K itself is the farthest I've ever run. And actually last week I accidentally did 9.5K, because what happens is as you're training, it breaks down your run into certain stages. So I'm currently on 3 stages where I have to run for 15 minutes a piece, and that overall thing, yes, it has like a warm up and stuff, but the overall exercise, it comes to about, I don't know, 55 minutes ish. And you're listening through your headphones, and when you hit each check mark, it will stop and say, now walk for 60 seconds, you are now on run, blah 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 blah. And essentially, when I was expecting it to say, you have now finished, the app crashed. And I was happily running along, just listening to my podcast. And I got to a point where I was in front of my house, and I was like, normally stops by now. I'll just go for a little longer and see what happens. And yeah, I got to like 9.5K and was like, oh yeah, this is a lot further than I'd done before. But just, yeah, running has, I don't know, it's just become something that I now just do, and I enjoy, and I feel good for it. And despite how much I am running, my legs really don't hurt that much at the end of it. And I think it's one of those things where I always like to do the things where you can prove that you can progress incrementally. So I'm still going for the 10K. I've not reached it yet, but that's on its way. And then...
sorry. No, go on. No, you haven't
Oh.
finished.
The second thing is a shout out to Michael David Wilson and Bob Pastorello over at This Is Horror Podcast, who had Chuck Palahniuk on their podcast, which is, for people who aren't familiar with Chuck, he's a freaking heavy hitter in terms of writing. Wrote Fight Club, done some amazing things. He wrote one of the most horrific short horror stories I've ever read called Guts, which you can check out, but I will warn you, it does make people faint. And Chuck Palahniuk was also on the Tim Ferriss show as well. So there are two fantastic interviews with him this week. But I know that for Michael, he's someone who started This Is Horror and made basically a dream list of the guests that he wants to get. And Chuck was right there at the top. So to see him get to a point where he's got this guest, this phenomenal superstar on his show, and just delivers a fantastic interview, I just want to say kudos to that and definitely go and check it out.
Amazing. I was going to tell you a story about me running, but maybe I'll tell you about it after.
Tell me.
Okay, so
you can't do that and then not.
I know. It's not that good of a story, but so I've trained for the marathon 3 times, and I went into the lottery, to do the London Marathon.
Nice.
You bid for it via a lottery, and I don't know how it happened, but I got a place 3 times. Once. The first time, it ended up being rolled over. So the second place that I got was because it was rolled over and they allowed me to roll it over.
The Euro Millions rollover?
No. Anyway, it's quite hard to get a place. Like, people bid for years to get a lotto. Oh, for fuck's sake, that's because you said lottery. Oh, it's been a week. Card. Yeah, let me tell the story because it's going to be such a cool story, bro. And then I'm just going to need to get a taxi for one. Right. Anyway, so I was training, and the furthest I got was 17 miles. So I was really close to running the marathon because it's only 26 miles and you stop at somewhere between 18 and 22. So you never run the 26 miles before the marathon. I don't know if you know that, but you don't. Yeah, you don't. Basically, the crowds carry you the last 4 miles. And so you get to 22, or somewhere between 18 and 22, and then they step down because they send you the plan. So they step down your mileage in the last, I think, like 2 weeks before the marathon. You step down the amount of miles. Anyway, so I'd gotten up to 17 miles, but I was only supposed to run 12 miles that week. And I have very, very flat feet. So I have no arch whatsoever, which basically means I'm very susceptible to shin splints, carpal tunnel, and knee problems. And I had spent a lot of money on a podiatry and inserts that were all measured around my feet to do all this running. Anyway, for anybody that knows me in real life, they know I'm not particularly good with directions, right? And so I was supposed to run 12 miles and silly Sacha went the wrong way. And there was like no phone signal, no nothing. So I had no fucking choice.
Is this actually in a marathon?
No. This is training. This is training,
okay.
Right? So I had no choice but to run home. So I ran home, right? And we opened the door and I literally collapsed through the door, crying, because I was so hysterically exhausted. And she just looked at me because I just ended up in the bath, but she said I had a salt crust.
Oh.
Head because I'd run so far.
Jesus.
Oh my god! So I literally had I was just such a mess. Like, I'm crying with laughter now.
Oh my god!
He was like halfway between trying to drag me through the door because there was nothing left. I was just on the floor like a fish out of water. Anyway, yeah. So I feel your pain on that extra half a kilometer is the point that I'm trying to make, and also take a sat nav if you're not very good at directions. Oh my god! Jesus. Right. So we've been doing this for about an hour and we haven't got to the question yet. So
welcome back.
Yeah, we're back. Right. Okay. Weekly confessional. You haven't got anything to confess. I, however. Yeah, okay, so I was supposed to work on Sirens drafting, which I have done. I am only 2 chapters away. from completing it. And the other thing I was supposed to work on is the course, which I have been doing, although I didn't get to do it the last 2 days. And I have to say, I am worried that I'm not going to get it done in time again. And that is playing on my mind a lot. So yeah, I mean, I have worked on it. I've worked very fucking hard on it this week when I have had the time to do it, but not getting enough time to work on it. So that's a problem.
Jay did send in his accountability, and A Rose Between Two Thorns is currently up for pre-order on Amazon, and that's the start of his 9-book romance series. So check that out.
I'm wondering.
I am joking.
I'm wondering if Faye did her task.
I don't know that she did. We could potentially forfeit her.
Yeah,
we'll chase up and find out what's going on.
Yeah, next week we will let you know if there's going to be a forfeit. We might have to bring her on as like a guest, like a third for her forfeit. Yeah,
and add an extra 20 minutes to the episode.
Yeah.
But yes.
Right, comments.
Comments. So the question last week was, how has your brand contributed to success, or how important is author brand to an author? And Holly Line said, firstly, great job, Faye Trask. Brand is so important. I have a set color palette for all of my promotional stuff, colored links and buttons and emails. And on my website, I try to lean on my feminism, sense of humor, independence, and ability to create massive immersive worlds. And she's still developing a brand of her nonfiction, which I think is quite a key point. You can have different brands for different pen names, different genres, whatever you're trying to work on. Victoria L.K. Williams says, I know about success, but it certainly keeps me focused. My readers know the book is going to have a tropical flair and a mystery to solve. Since I write cozy, I keep my brand clean, except here on the group where she said shit twice already. I love animals and I'm a landscape designer in real life, so that spills into my brand as well. I have quite a few garden customers who are also my readers. And then Edwin says that the latest Next Level author challenged him over the question of what is his author brand, and asked for anyone that knows him to reach out and to try and give him a bit of help trying to work out what his brand is. So if anyone knows Edwin's work, then reach out on Facebook, on Twitter, or anywhere and give him a hand.
Absolutely. And yeah, just to apologize that neither of us got into the Facebook group to respond. I did read both of them, but I also wasn't responding to anything in my Facebook group this week. It's been a week, if you didn't realize. So yeah, apologies about that. We will make sure that we do this week. Okay, so update from Faye. She did not complete her task. Yeah, she did fix a plot hole, but I think that spells a forfeit. I don't know. We'll have to. Let's talk about this offline.
Yes, and decide how evil we could be.
Yeah. Alrighty. Question of the week. Are you ready?
As ready as I've ever been.
Yeah, I know.
Bring it. What you got?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's very on brand for what we've already been talking about. And I didn't plan it this way, but I was maybe inspired. So what is your relationship with failure?
So, again, there's that big, deep breath in. So failure for me has, or how I view failure has changed a lot over the past, I want to say 6 or 7 years, maybe. I think I once fell victim to the fact that, or the idea that failure was something that was negative, something that you should never go for. Failure was basically losing. And I don't know, as I've gotten older and as I have failed at certain things, or things haven't exactly gone the way that I've wanted, and I've had to pivot in personal life, in career and everything else, I've changed my mindset entirely to just believe that failure is just a challenge. Anything that is or can be perceived as negative in that way is just something else to overcome. And you cannot get anywhere in life without failing at something, or if you do, it's a very boring life, because fear of failure forces you to play safe. And if you exist in that safe space, it's very, very rare that you grow. The only way that you can actually ever grow is by failing, falling over yourself, learning from the thing that you've done, and just pushing forward and trying not to make that mistake again, trying to just take those lessons on board. And yeah, I think, like I say, it's something that it's been an ever-evolving journey. The last few years, particularly in my personal life, I've had quite a fair few big challenges. And within a lot of them, I was faced with that whole, because you get down when things aren't working out. And I'll use, just because this is probably one of the biggest examples of it in my life, I'll use like romantic relationships, particularly ones that you think are going to go the distance, and you get to a point in which you realize that they're not working. And you get to a point in which obviously you feel down, you feel, like, what can you do to fix it? What's gone wrong? All this kind of stuff. And you get to a point where you realize that there is no fixing, and you have to really just put it behind you and move on. And you get to a moment where you have to make a choice as to whether you basically just let it defeat you and keep you down for a long time, or you view that as a challenge. You try and take the lessons that it teaches you and go on from that. So it's something that's it's not been easy to come to terms with, but the more I failed, the more I failed in my life, the easier it's become to see failure just as a place in which you shouldn't continue going. And actually, I think in having failed in something, one of the best things you can know about yourself is that that's no longer a thing you have to put your time and energy into, and that you can move that elsewhere. And I think I've used this example before, but I, at the beginning of this year, was going to dive into an urban fantasy series with a co-author, and I did all the plan. It was built in somebody else's world. There was a very, very high chance of it being successful as a series with everything that was going on around it. And I got about 20,000 words into the book. I met up with a bunch of author friends around Christmas. When was it? I can't remember. This year's weird. And outright then said, this is my direction for 2020. I'm doing urban fantasy. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. And got 20,000 words into this book and just went, I am not enjoying myself. Like, the writing is average at best. I don't feel like it's my best work. I feel like I'm forcing ideas. And I had to basically just put all my ego aside and go back to that co-author and say, this isn't working for me. And I was a bit worried because they're also a personal friend of mine. And obviously you don't want to let a friend down. And they pretty much bounced back and said, okay, that's absolutely fine. Obviously for me, that means I don't have to waste my time in trying to convince you and going through all this kind of stuff. And at the same time, for you, it's a bonus because you now know you've given this a go and this just isn't an avenue for you, and you can put your efforts elsewhere. So I think my relationship with fear summed up is to take the lessons that it learns, move forward, and just see it more as a challenge to which you can then grow from.
The lessons from fear? Or do you mean failure? And I
failure
wonder if, and
fear. That was
I wonder
Freudian.
That was a Freudian. I wonder that.
Well, to be fair, they tie in together because when you approach something that you think is going to fail, I think there is an element of fear of where that's going. So.
Yeah, but they are also distinctly different, and I do think there's something in the fact that you just said fear and not failure.
Peel the onion.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna talk to you about that later.
I mean, that was quite a broad answer, so I don't know if that's what you were kind of gunning for, but
as always with these questions, the answer is whatever your answer is, and I guess whatever my answer is, because we only have our own truth, and so whatever you say is right. There is that, and whatever any listener says in the comments is right because that's their truth and that's their, their reality and their world. I am probably going to upset a lot of people with my answer. But, I do like to be controversial. And I don't believe in failure. So I think failure, I know, don't raise your eyebrows at me. So I feel like failure is a construct that we have created. And obviously there are occasions, so failure is so black and white that I just think it is incorrectly described. It's got too many incorrect connotations around it. Right. So let me try and explain why. So I believe there is success and there's quitting, and that's it. And
I thought you were going that direction.
Yeah. And the thing is, right, and so everybody's probably taking a huge, sharp intake of breath, but it's okay because either you're successful or you quit. And sometimes it's okay to quit.
Hell yeah.
Right? I'm not saying that you can't ever quit. You can absolutely quit. But that's it. There is only two options, because either you continue going until you succeed, or you don't. And it's a bit Yoda. What's the Yoda?
Do or do not, there is no try.
Exactly. And I feel very strongly about failure in that way. So you look at James Dyson, 5,326 or 27 different prototypes. That fucking guy did not quit, right? And like ultimately, there are authors who've got 300 rejections from publishers and they didn't fucking quit. And they still got, and eventually they got the publisher that they wanted. And that really is it. I feel like the whole concept of failure is as black and white as its construct. There is no try. You either do or you don't do, and either way it's okay. Sometimes it's okay not to. That's it. But you I don't know. Maybe it's just the mood that I'm in, or the position that I'm in this week, but I just feel like there is no such thing as failure. You either quit something or you continue until you fucking do it.
I do think you touch on quite a key point in the terms of quitting being seen as this negative thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, because if we take writing as an example, there are people who they give writing a good old college try and they do it for 6 months and they're out of the business. You have people that get into a loop of, they've been trying to chip away for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And they get to a point where they feel like if they stop doing and change direction or doing whatever that isn't writing, because they've essentially identified themselves as a writer, they've put that image onto other people, they've made that a part of who they are, then that's in quitting, that invokes the feeling of failure. So I'd argue that failure is almost like the psychological state of how you view the act of quitting, in a way, if we're going to get deep with this.
I agree. And but therefore, is failure a choice?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Failure.
Bringing it full circle. I mean, with relationships, I could have been in a position with some in which I tried harder. They could have tried harder in certain ways. There could have been certain things that maybe would have worked on one way or another, but you get to a point sometimes where your threshold for trying runs out. And that's different for different people. But I totally get what you mean.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like there's no shame in quitting. There's no shame in changing direction, changing your mind. Like all of those things are 1,000,000% valid. And you have permission. Like if something is bringing you the opposite of joy, I can't think of the word right now, but if it's making you miserable. Yeah, miserable. Yeah, if it's making you miserable, then maybe you should quit. Like, why? Life is so fucking short. There's no time to be miserable in this life. But that does mean quitting. And if you quit, you have to be okay with quitting. And so I guess what I'm saying is sometimes you have to quit stuff and it's okay. And I just feel like this whole topic is so relevant for this week, like for so many different reasons. But yeah.
So Sacha's quitting the podcast?
No, I'm not. No, but I am.
Joke about that, Dan.
No, I know, no. But I am looking to quit things, which is interesting. So, I did that reader survey and I'm still, I've mentioned it now on the podcast. So I'm waiting for podcast listeners to fill it out as well. But I will quit things based on the results of that.
Oh, no pressure.
I know.
Nice.
Anyway, that's it. So,
good question.
Yeah, thanks. After all that pressure, when I was like, I don't know what to ask.
Yeah, it's interesting that you went for sort of like the mental mindset one today.
Yeah. See what you did there.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So how are we leveling up our business this week?
Oh, so I have to do a full draft of When Winter Comes numero 5. And I have to finish planning a client's project at the minute. Oh, and another bit of exciting for me anyway, that I didn't mention at the beginning, is this week I am getting, I've got a meeting with a photographer and having some professional headshots done for both my horror business and for something else that's coming up into the future that I'm very excited about. So that's going to be a fun one to see how they turn out. So yeah, busy one for me. How about you?
I'm same as last week. Continue with Sirens and the course. I'm hoping that Sirens is finished this week, but I'm not going to put that as my task because I just, I've cut 2 chapters, I've added stuff. I'm very close to the end, but I just don't quite know if something else is going to go in. So yeah, continue working on that and make a shitload of progress on the slide decks for the course. And audience
real measurable goal.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah, let's measure it in shit and loads and and that will be fine. All right, audience question of the week. What is your relationship with failure? And we will see you next week.
See ya.
Hungry for more?
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear more of my angelic accent and Dan's dulcet tones on our other podcasts.
For more of me, check out the Great Writers Share podcast.
For more of me, listen to the Rebel Author podcast. We'll be back next week holding each other to account as Dan
and Sacha
become
Next Level
authors.